The moment is here, you can stop your search. It's Comics by Perch.
Hey everybody, this is Perch. People are striking. Have you heard? Anyway, this mail is asking about it. It says, how will comics fail to capitalize on the WGA strike? It says, hey Perch, the writer strike is still ongoing in Hollywood and the actors are about to join them. My prediction, by the way, is they sort of will. There will be a lot of caveats there. It's like, yeah, we're going to support the writers, but we're going to finish our current projects first, of course. And then there's some other projects that we may, that's been going on for a while, and we need to. Well, we're gonna tweet, and we will march. I don't know. Some people will head out. Maybe I'm just too cynical about the whole thing. But my prediction is that several actors who strike will be actors who are not currently working. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, so this could have massive detrimental impacts on studios, streaming services, and many others, but has no direct impact on the comics market. Well, I don't know that I agree, but let's keep going. A shrewd business person would have already been formulating ways to turn this to their advantage. Well, in TV, they are. I mean, in TV, you're going to see a rise in reality shows. So get ready to be introduced to a bunch of wacky new hosts that you've never seen before as we get, spinoffs of really lame old shows. And people are once again going to look to Japan and say, do they have any game shows over there that are batshit crazy that we could bring back to the U.S.? What about, there was a show, which in hindsight, I went and watched a couple of the episodes on YouTube, and probably it's what's the right word? Quote, problematic, unquote, now, but it's called, the translation here was Bonsai, and it was designed to appear like a Japanese game show. It wasn't a Japanese game show, but it was weird. Look up Bonsai, maybe reality TV show Fox. So I think it was on Fox. On YouTube, and check out a couple of those episodes. They're wild. You think about, kind of what was going on there. But funny. But I watched it the other day because I have fond memories of the show, and I'm like, well, first of all, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be, but also, it's like, man, this show would be torched today. Anyway, be that as it may, we're going to see a lot more of that. That's how the shrewd business people of Hollywood are planning to tackle this strike. But back to comics. It says anything from offering striking writers a place to express themselves artistically while also making a little money on the side. To Marvel or DC, positioning themselves to be an important part of their parent company's streaming service, the digital comic subscription, at a significant discount when you can maintain their primary streaming service so that you will still have entertainment regardless of the strike. Those are just off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are other options. So my real question is, and sorry it took so long to get to it, how do you think the comic industry will manage to do absolutely nothing to capitalize on the situation and just continue to durdle around until the only comic left in print is collections of Garfield? Fuck, that's depressing. I have a piece of Jim Davis original art, and I'm glad to have it. At the same time, I don't like Garfield, so it's weird. As we've moved, the picture gets a lesser and lesser prominence in my studio, and I noticed the other day it's not up anywhere, and I don't want to stare at that. It's probably worth something, but anyway. All right. Well, first off, comics aren't immune from the writer's strike because several writers in comics have kind of identified as needing to go on strike. And if you think about it in a kind of a wacky way, or I don't know, if you think about it in a different way, the writers of comics arguably have the same beef or a bigger beef than a lot of the writers of the TV shows, in the sense that, consistent royalties and pay on trade and digital, revenue and all that kind of stuff exists for comics too, and is as half-assed or more, usually more, than comics. We've had lots of videos talking about kind of the really goofy, screwed up way that freelancers are handled in the comic business. So you could make the argument that the complaints that Hollywood has exist for comics too, and maybe even exist at a higher severity level. So, maybe they should strike. The challenge is if you're going to strike, you have, there has to be some, you have to have some leverage. And what you see with TV is, especially if some of the actors do truly join the strike, you will see a pretty decent amount of leverage. The people do want, they need content. I don't think there's going to be a miss on streaming services and everything else. I think, places like Netflix and HBO and Amazon Prime and all others, they'll trundle along. They'll do okay. But there's still the writers and the people involved in those businesses do have leverage because people are consuming those pieces of content. The streaming services are highly valued on being able to have content. So, I mean, all this stacks up to the point that, Hollywood is going to have to deal with the writer's strike in some form or fashion. I mean, there's not really a way around that. They're going to have to do something. Comics, there is not that problem. I mean, people can go on Twitter and bitch all day long, but the publishers can very easily and will and are already just going overseas, finding work over there and plugging it in. As much as somebody like a comic writer can scream on Twitter about scabs and in this case, they're not talking about, a condition that they have on their body because they can't afford medical care. But I mean, I'm talking, breaking a picket line. There's so little money and conversely, there is a lot of desire to write a lot of these heroes. So, these companies can go other places in the world and get work done and will. And the full-time staffers, they don't have the leverage. I mean, again, they can moral support on social media all day long, but they do not have the leverage to go, yeah, we're standing by our creators. If they had that leverage, they would have, they would have had a more responsibility to do that years and years ago, when people are suffering. So I don't think, unfortunately, first off, a lot of freelancers in comics are already talking about striking. I don't know that they will. Because I think it's very easy for the comic publisher to just go somewhere else and get the work done. But, there's really not leverage. So that gets back to your core question of, well, how could comics take advantage of this? Well, I think certainly the ideas you mentioned, I mean, it would be very easy for, Marvel or DC or any publisher to go to some of these writers who are on strike for TV and say, look, come over here. We actually treat our people well. We give them benefits. We give them their fair cut of royalties and everything else. So, come over here and do some writing for us and showcase this as an industry that actually gets it right. That would be a smart play for comics to do. It would require, that those things actually happen. That is a little hitch in the whole system. They would actually have to do those things and pay those benefits and make it that attractive place. But honestly, if you were a smaller company, it'll be hard for Marvel or DC to do it because they're wrapped up with Warner Media and Disney, and those are companies that they're striking against. But if you're a smaller company and you have the money, and that would be a big if, yeah, why not? I mean, put something out there like, we treat our workers well in our business, in our entertainment business. We treat them with respect. We give them the money they're due. And so a lot of writers come over here and work for us. And again, there's no guarantee that those writers in Hollywood actually would be good. I've talked about that in other videos. They usually aren't when they come over. So there's not a guarantee that we get good quality out of it. But it'd be an interesting play, and it would certainly thrust comics into the limelight a little bit. And I think it would be a great PR if comics could kind of hold their head up and say, hey, we fixed our issues. We make this a good place to work. Unfortunately, I mean, there's a big gap from today to that point. So, I don't know how feasible that would actually be to fix it. But, worth a try. I think the other thing is, go into your, if you're talking about how to make money off this, get some people with smart marketing and kind of business skills, go into your back catalog and really promote the hell out of the fact that you do have entertainment. That wouldn't be a bad idea. Or go out there and hire some animation studios to do what manga does and do a, page for page recreation in animation get some, cheap, Asian art studio to do it, like manga does, and that could potentially be pretty interesting. Where you don't, in theory, you don't need translators more than writers, but you do these, you put out some bunch of content. If you're Disney right now, they'd be crazy not to do this. Put out a bunch of, comic, recreated animated shows like anime does for manga, and just recreate the biggest and best storylines of your top heroes and start running that on Disney Plus. I think that for whatever reason, Disney and and Warner and these other companies do not understand. They're getting in their own head, and they don't realize that would do amazingly well. These comics, and there's business justification. If you're putting together a pitch or a business proposal, manga and anime, and that synergy and the money that comes out for recreations is high. It's really high. So it's nuts that they don't do this. It's obvious money just sitting there, and that would be the smartest thing in the world for people to do, and it would definitely help with the writer strikes. You just don't need the writers in the same way. You need a different type of writer to kind of make that happen. You could do a lot of it overseas. It'd be very, very cheap. My guess is that if you took, if you decided to pick up the Claremont, X-Men or the giant size X-Men when they introduce those people and just do a, 1 or 2 comics per episode and just put that out for 2 or 3 years, my guess is that would, unless the animation is really terrible, that would probably get higher ratings, do better than than the majority of a lot of their original content at a fraction of the price. And that would be a great way to capitalize on the writer's strike. But also there's comic itself. Dive into your library, promote that you got all this entertainment. That would be smart. My guess is, though, nobody will do anything because they're stuck in this, we support the strike, but we don't really, the comedy of comics is that, people who are in comics as writers supporting the strike, who are just in comics, not doing other business. I'm not talking about those people. Jeff Thorne, for example, does a lot of work outside of comics. So, not him, but if you're talking about a writer who's just in comics and they're, quote unquote, going on strike, there's no, when this gets resolved, and it will at some point, there's not going to be a resolution for comics. Comics is not going to get wrapped up in this. Yes, you may be making things better for other sources of media, but comics is going to go right back to paying royalties in a half-ass way and doing dumb contracts and all kinds of things. So I don't know. It's crazy. Anyway, what do you think? Thank you very much for the mail, and thanks for listening.